Hi everyone. Let's imagine it's 2026 and the world as we know it crumbles. Stock markets plunge into free fall. Banks shut their doors overnight. Governments scramble printing money that buys nothing but panic. Our jobs are vanishing like smoke. Home foreclosures in waves. And in the shadows, wars ignite over scraps of what's left. Kind of sounds like a dystopian blockbuster, doesn't it? But it's not. It's the prediction of one man who has nailed it before, actually twice. And if history is any guide, 2026 could be the year the global financial system finally breaks. Welcome back to the channel. Today I will discover the forces shaping our future and diving deep into the chilling forecast that's got economists whispering and investors sweating. And that is the global collapse of 2026 as foretold by Fred Harrison. Who is Fred Harrison? Well, stick around because you will find out who Fred Harrison is, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to protect yourself or at least spot the signs before it's too late. Okay, so who is Fred Harrison? He's not your typical suit and tie pundit. He's a British economist, a journalist, and a land reform advocate, and he spent decades dissecting the hidden rhythms of the economy. Let's cut to a clip of Fred Harrison.
Fred, you famously, in article in the popular press, especially the Daily Mail for some reason, are famed as the man who predicted the last two recessions. Now, according to your theory, that means the next recession is here.
Because have no clue as to what is just about to happen.
Okay, I'm going to stop the video there and we're going to go back to 1997. Fred Harrison wrote this groundbreaking book called The Chaos Makers. And Harrison boldly predicted a massive property crash in 2001, except it hit a year earlier in 2000, tanking the dot-com bubble and sparking a global recession. But undeterred, he doubled down in 2005 with the boom bust, house prices, banking, and the depression of 2010. And the world laughed until 2008, when subprime mortgages imploded, banks teetered on the brink, and the Great Recession swallowed trillions. Harrison wasn't guessing. He was reading the tea leaves of a pattern most ignore, the 18-year property cycle. Let's cut back into that video.
And that's the trauma that we're now in. We are locked into a peak behavior which will result in the termination of house prices over the next 12 to 18 months, far worse than what we experienced between 2008 and 2010.
Okay, we'll stop the video right there. So here's the genius and also the terror of Harrison's theory. He says in his book that land isn't just dirt, it's the golden goose of modern capitalism. Every 18 years, like clockwork, property values surge in a euphoric boom. Investors pile in, speculators frenzy, governments juice the pot with easy credit, and then prices skyrocketing, creating illusionary wealth that props up stocks and jobs and everything. But it's a bubble that's built on sand. Inevitably, the mania peaks, credit tightens, and the bust crashes down, wiping out that fake prosperity and dragging the whole economy into the abyss. Kind of sounds like what's happening right now. So we're going to fast forward to right now, and Harrison's clock is ticking louder than ever. In that interview in September of 2025, he reaffirms the peak hits in 2026, but the actual crash doesn't happen until 2027. But he also says that this one is different, it's bigger, it's badder, and it's also global. The pandemic threw a wrench in the works, for sure, he says. That mid-cycle dip, it came right on schedule in 2019. Then boom, pandemics, trillions in stimulus, wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. Governments funneled cash straight into housing, deregulating lending for first-time buyers who could borrow, listen to this, up to 6 times their income, and supercharged the boom early. Prices didn't just rise, they exploded prematurely, banking those final manic gains ahead of schedule. Let's get back into that video of Fred.
So, are you saying that this recession is going to be bigger and nastier than the last 2 recessions?
Far worse. Into my 80s.
Okay, I'll stop the video there. It sounds pretty scary, but what he's really saying is when this happens, when this pops, there's no parachute. Governments blew their slush funds on pandemic bailouts. No more trillion-dollar lifelines. Let's get back into that video.
The range of his wars with Europe.
Okay, we'll stop the video right there. Harrison argues that Trump's agenda will fuel a speculative surge in asset prices, including property, by injecting more liquidity and rewarding landowner investors. Policies like deregulation and potential stimulus would encourage borrowing and flipping, echoing the pre-2008 environment Harrison warned about. He sees Trump as a personification of the culture of cheating, prioritizing short-term gains for speculators over systematic reform like land value taxation, which he advocates to prevent cycles. Harrison warns of Trump's tariffs, but by late 2026, he predicts the governments will be bankrupt. They'll be completely bankrupt. They'll be overwhelmed by bailouts for crashing banks and property funds, and with Trump's fiscal expansion worsening this. I will leave the link to that video of Fred Harrison. It goes into detail of what he predicts for 2026. There's a lot of information in that video, but it's really a wake-up call. So in that full video, he'll break down the warning signs that are flashing right now and what it means for your wallet and Harrison's radical fix. Hit the like button if you like this video and subscribe for more unfiltered truth. Drop your comments below and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.